All right, what's up, DFS Army VIPs? It is NFL Week 1, and you know what? It's the first week of the season. We've done back testing, we've done it all, but I decided let's do a quick Domination Station setup tutorial for Week 1. We'll go DraftKings. I'm going to follow the outline that we discovered. So the settings and outline that we discovered while doing back testing. All right, I'll get a little more detailed, but this is meant to be a setup tutorial, not a copy what Geek is doing. And like, I'm not breaking down the full slate. We got the Players Club still coming up, but the design here is let me show you how to set up the Domination Station to run 150 lineups in such a way that you create stacked, correlated lineups designed to take down tournaments. Let's get into it, boys. All right, boys and girls, let's do this thing. All right, so I'm on the Domination Station Optimizer. My man, fucking Millie Maker winner, bro. I love it. I love it. That's what happens. We'll get you straightened out on these stacks. So we did a back test this season. There's a couple of different. So with the Domination Station, there's a couple of different stacking technologies that we have in place. One is called correlated stacking, which is awesome. A little more complicated to use, but awesome. And the other one we call legacy stacking, which is a little bit simpler, a lot of control. Both are really good. Yeah. Don't have. Oh, there you go. Both are really good methods for stacking. So let's just get into it real quick here. So we've got our Domination Station open up. We can see our games filter. Again, we discovered in our back testing that something we already knew, that we really want to focus our stacks around games with high totals. If you need to get it simplified for you, those are the games that have green. The greener, the better. Okay, greener the better. Red, not good. Red means stop, green means go. So let's focus on the games here with the greenest. But let's go back to what we did. Damn it. Let's go back to what we did in our back testing. And I'm going to go full screen, guys. You don't have to see my mug anymore, but we're going to show you how to set up the optimizer in such a way that hopefully will help you take down milli makers and whatever. So there's two ways to go about setting up your stacks. Now, first of all, let's set up our primary options here before we get to the stacks. Primary options are 3 uniques per lineup, tournament mode. I like to use server. And on DraftKings, put a 0 in for RB percentage. That's what I do. So I am not using running backs in the flex on DraftKings this year. If you want to use them, that's up to you. I am not using them, right? It's more often than not that a wide receiver will show up there on DraftKings. All right. Basic settings. Now, 3 uniques per lineup. We're still going to figure out and determine our projected ownership. So let's start with the simplest stack rule possible. Now, we might have to change this. We probably should. Somebody's asking FanDuel and DraftKings, FanDuel, basically the same. The only difference for me on FanDuel is I do allow running backs in the flex much more so than on DraftKings where I don't. But the basic rule, the golden rule, stack QB with no less than 2 players of wide receiver, tight end, same team, and 1 of players from the opposite team. Now, when we really go through the slate in depth, we can actually make an individual rule for every game. So, and I'll give some examples here of why this is important. A perfect example is the Eagles game. I'm not really sure that I want to stack Jalen Hurts with 2 players. I'm not really sure which 2 players to stack him with. I might either make a Jalen Hurts specific 1 player, only stack with 1 from the same team rule. Briar's asking about last year. Yes, we have learned a new approach this season about that. There, I'm going 0% RB this year. The back testing really proved out to me that wide receivers are just better to use in the flex. So I'm just on DraftKings. So I'm just doing that. right? These rules that we're using right here were born out by back testing the entirety of last season. The things that we discovered. Yes, there you go. Kangar's got it. For Hertz and Kyler Allen, you could really do QB plus one. So if I had the time to sit here, the other way to do it is to go every QB no less than two of. I could just name them. It really doesn't take very long. I can make 10 different rules. All right, I can make a whole bunch of different rules like that. Boom, and I can go through and make this for every single quarterback. That way, I could deal with the Kyler Murrays and the Jalen Hurtses of the world. But for now, for the set, I mean, you could do it either way you want. But for a very basic overview, this is what we did last year. And yeah, you can do with Kamara. So, like for example, there's another one. If you're playing Winston, which I will not, then yeah, you want to pair him with Kamara, for example. And maybe I'll play some Winston. I don't know. So let's go through some other basic optional things that we discovered. Um, I don't want too much defense. I already set a lot of this up. 20% tight end. The way you do that is you type 20% here. Wide receiver, I go 30% at wide receiver. You can see I've got them set to 30% max. Running back, I've got them set to 30% max for now. Actually, I'm going to change that down to 20% here. I don't want to go too crazy. And then we'll increase some exposures. And then I've got all my QBs set down to 15%. And again, we can go through a couple of quarterbacks. That we want to increase our exposure to based on these games. So, but at first I'm going to sort of run it raw. And Gregory, yes, on FanDuel, James Robinson is pretty much an all-in. On DraftKings, that's definitely less of a thing. So here we go. We're just running lineups right now based on very little input. Are we fading tight ends in low-scoring games, low exposure? No. Don't fade any tight ends. Tight ends just pop off out of nowhere. And in tournaments, usually tight end like defense, it's one of those spots where like you never really know who's going to pop off on the cheapies, but you generally need that person to win the tournament. So no, I don't think you want to fade tight ends for the most part. We want to get leverage on most of the tight ends. Yes. So these maxes that I did, if you watch the back test, what we did was we started with some basic maxes that seemed to work out really well, but you did have to go in and make a few adjustments depending on slate specific things. Like for example, if we're loading up on one game that stands out above all others on a particular week, like this week, the Browns game stands out a ton, right? If we're loading up on that game, we want to increase the max limit on some of the players, especially wide receivers from that game. So I might go, oh, I'm loading up, so I'll increase my exposure to Tyreek Hill and Jarvis Landry. It looks like right now with Odell Beckham maybe questionable, maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones, the Peoples wide receiver. We'll see, but let's take a look. So we just made a run. Oh yeah, of course. My cheapy defense went 93% because it's one defense that I didn't limit here, so we'll limit them. But Kanger, where are you at, bro? I mean, I didn't do anything special here. We got all of our exposures where we want them for the most part in terms of not going over our max limits anywhere. Listen, if this is all you wanted to do and run it just like this, and you say, I don't give a shit, I just ran it. Let's see what happens. I don't hate the run. Look what you're getting. It's loading up on Mahomes. You know who's not? I definitely want more Baker Mayfield than that this week. He's part of the best game, even with a love, an adore on him. So check this out here. This gives us an opportunity to go over something, right? I smashed an adore on Baker Mayfield, yet he's still not really showing up very much. I'm getting Jacob Eason. That's just weird. Some of these guys I want more exposure to. Yeah, I haven't done it yet. You should do that, right? So like you want to do the right thing. The first thing you got to do is cut your player pool down. And how do we do that? We're going to just uncheck the players we don't want under any circumstances. And the way you do that is you uncheck this button. So let's do this a little more than a basic. Do you limit your QB pool for 20 max? No, I'm telling you, I start here and then I'm going to find a couple of quarterbacks that I want to go heavier on. and I'll potentially allow a little bit more exposure to those specific quarterbacks. Just trying to see if there's anybody else I'm open to playing this week. These two guys, I'll play a little bit. I'll play a little bit of them. Okay. Now, let's say I say, well, I really love Mahomes. Rolling with Mahomes, 20%. Maybe I really love Kyler Murray, so I might increase it. Josh Allen, I always like him. Russ, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, these are guys I definitely like. So, I'm going to give them all like a little bit of a boost. This is not a week where I really have found a spot where I want to go extreme heavy on. And again, I still want to make an adjustment to Hurts and Kyler Murray, but I'm just going to use this approach for now. Running back, same deal now. We can go through the running back position. I like to check. First thing we do is say, all right, who do we get a lot of? Who do we get a lot of? Who do we want more of? Who do we want less of? Austin Eckler with the hammy. Am I dying to roster him in that? Aaron Jones. You never want to have too little Aaron Jones. I do like Najee Harris. Robinson. How about Hilaire in the highest projected game on the slate? Not really showing up much. So Raheem Mostert, I definitely want that leverage. So, there's some spots here at running back where I'm going to want a little bit of leverage. So I'm gonna kind of do a little something to hopefully get some more leverage, get a little bit more love going on those guys. Raheem Mostert, I really like at low ownership. So I'm going to do a little bit of modifications. Let's see here. Let's take a look at the wide receiver position. Yeah, I'm getting like way too much of this guy. So I'm going to make some adjustments. Marquez Callaway, I kind of think I want to fade in tournaments. I don't want to fade him too hard, but I don't want to be over the field on a situation like that. I might say I really like T. Higgins, so I might go a little higher on him. Pittman, I love. Might kind of like raise that up a little bit, make sure we get the full 30%. This is really early in the week. I don't really want to get too deep into a player pool. Where's my boy Jarvis Landry? Let's see if we're getting as much of him as we want. Nope. So we got to make it. What's my Mahomes? What's the comeback on the Mahomes lineup? Wait a minute. Oh, same team. Oh, there we go. See, you guys got to tell me. Hold on. Same team. Opposing team. There we go. There we go. All right. That was weird. I had the rule wrong. Okay. Good question, Chip. Chapo. I do like Tannehill, man. Don't put words in my mouth. Say what? Don't put words in my mouth. I love Tannehill in that spot. The big thing with me for Tannehill is I'm going to make a special rule that I don't want Tannehill and Derrick Henry in the same lineup together. So let me show you a couple of these specialty rules. Chop is telling me about one too. So let me show you a couple specialty situations, right? So we're adjusting our player pool a little bit, but we noticed, and I'm not going to let it run the full time. We noticed the first time wasn't getting a lot of Baker Mayfield. I want more, not getting it. So here's what I'm going to do. Very simple. Let's say I want 10% of my lineups to have Baker Mayfield in it. I don't slap in a door. I don't slap a love. I just set his minimum exposure at 10%. It's that simple. Now, I said before, another rule. I don't like the idea of, I don't really like QB with their own wide receiver. I can make a general rule. So I can do stack QB with exactly 0 RB same team. Easy rule to make. I don't mind this rule. Going to leave it in place. Okay, you ready? Let's give it another run. Now we're going to get our 10% Baker Mayfield coverage. And I'm just going to, like I said, I'm going to show you what these lineups look like at the end. I haven't even done a very important component of this. Actually, I got to do it, which is remove the chalkiness. So I don't want to forget that very, very important step. We have a couple of different tools at our disposal to make sure that our lineups are unique and not super chalky. Now, the first thing right off the bat is just creating this style of stack already gets you some uniqueness, right? Because a lot of people, for whatever reason, are not putting QB with 2 pass catchers and 1 for the opposing team. They usually only do it with 1. That gives us a little bit of an edge on the field in terms of trying to win tournaments. But for ownerships, that already kind of affects the roster construction. But for ownerships, we have 2 tools that we can use here. Number 1 is force at least X number of players from X position group under X% owned. So I can make a rule that would say force at least 2 players of wide receiver, running back under 10% owned if I want. Okay, here we go. We're done. Under, like, we don't want tight end. I can make a rule like this. This is not how we're going to do it, but I can make this rule. No problem. Force at least 2 players, running back, wide receiver, under 10% owned in each lineup. That will ensure that we get fairly low ownerships in some spots. I don't mind that rule. I like it. If you look at this lineup, for example, it does not have 2 players under 10% ownership at running back and wide receiver. So this is a very, actually you got 2 wide receivers under 10%, it looks like, but not, no running back. So very chalky at running back. Can make a rule like that. But I think the easier way is to actually figure out what is how chalky are my lineups overall. So I can sort by total percent ownership. Now, in this run, I got 133%. Wow, very low, right? And as I scroll down, looks like Donovan Peoples-Jones is already popping in some lineups. As I scroll down, it's 100, it's 98, it's 96. So I kind of look at like the top 10 or 15, 20 lineups, and I go, all right, let's go for the top. Let's just scroll down a little bit. 133, 130, 126, 123, 120, 119. A run like this, I might say, you know what? Let's just start this at 110. So now what we're doing is I'm just going to set a cap on my total projected ownership at 110, which is 20 percentage points exactly below where the highest one was, which was 133. It's funny. These numbers will change. So make sure that if you're doing this like today on a Friday, that you recalculate the ownership expectation on Sunday when the ownership projection model resets itself, right? Or refreshes, and we got all the new info out. Things change constantly. So now I'm running it. Now I'm running this, guys, with a 110 projected max ownership, 3 unique players, tournament mode. I set some basic limits on some players. And this is and we did the standard stack: QB, no less than 1 wide receiver, opposing team, QB, no less than 2 tight end wide receiver, same team. We back tested every week of last season, guys. This was from what I found. And we've got more people doing back testing and actually kind of, I'm going to say, fine tuning it. So we might adjust these parameters as the season goes on. And I really, really encourage every single one of you to do this yourself. Back test as many weeks as possible as you can. Follow what I did in the guidelines, and you'll gain confidence in your approach when you do this. I promise you, when you run the domination station and then after 5 minutes you hit a milli making winning lineup without almost any adjustment, you start to realize, fuck, I'm probably adjusting this thing way more than I should be. Right? So here we go. Baker Mayfield, as promised, 10%. Tannehill, we're going to get, I want more of him. I want more of him. So I still want a little more exposure to some of these other guys. But, the more quarterbacks you're going to play, the less you can spread it around, so to speak. So just keep that in mind. I like the Tannehill's going to be very low owned, so we'll do a little bit of that. But overall, that's basically it, guys. We just ran 150 lineups. We're not overly chalky. Here's a nice looking lineup: Mahomes, Elijah Moore, Mike. So the Mahomes lineups are all going to have like these cheapies in them, right? 2 very cheap wide receivers, because if you're going to force Travis Kelce and Reek in a lineup together, you're pretty much going to have to use some Garbaggio. Now, I think Odell Beckham, as another example, hamstring injury, hamstring issues, a little nervous about it, not excited to play him. So things are going to change between now and Sunday. And this is not intended to be like hey, follow this outline on these quarterbacks and do exactly like this. I'm showing you how to get the tool to, you don't have to be overly cute. Just run it. And then find a few spots where you want to get leverage. You might say, you know what? Like Derrick Henry, maybe you do. Maybe you don't want 20%. Raheem Mostert, I forced him in lineups. Maybe you say, oh, Dalvin Cook, let me go higher on him. He's in a can't miss spot. Alvin Kamara, whatever you want to do. Or here's Robinson. He's only going to be 6% owned. I might want more of him than that. You might say, I don't like Chase Edmonds at all. I don't know. So I definitely like Najee Harris for you. I don't, Kareem Hunt, fine. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is somebody I'm probably going to want to go over the field on. So go through your player pool. Don't make it overly restrictive. Find a few plays, one or two. I love weeks when I can go all in. I have not found an all-in play this week. It's week 1. It's really hard to go all in on a spot. I feel like if I had to go all in on somebody, Michael Pittman, maybe? I don't know. As a wide receiver, you don't like to go all in on any wide receivers. Pittman, yeah, I'm getting my full 30% here. We've got guys who can't really fail. That's way too much Tommy Tarachi, Terrace Marshall. We're not going to allow that, right? So there are going to be situations where I'm going to go in. I usually actually go through and, individually deal with the player pool so that we don't get these issues. Manny Sanders might be out. Well, if he is, we'll jack up Gabriel Davis, Anthony Schwartz. So I didn't go through it and remove players from the pool, but that is definitely something I do every single week. Like I just go through it. Like I said, when you want to clear down your player pool, you're going to do it like this. Uncheck you all, and then check back in the players that you want to use or you want to allow in your lineups. Don't be overly restrictive with this. I'm using this much more to eliminate the garbage. I like as many players as possible available in the pool. For the most part, we want to let the projections do a lot of the work. People get way too cute. Let the projections do the work. You don't have to get too cute. If a guy's in a bad spot, the projections are not going to force him in line. Like Jerry, I don't need that. Mecole Hardman, sure. Let the projections do the work. That's the most important thing that we could say. And don't remove wide receivers from teams where you're going to stack around the quarterback. Do not do that. If you're stacking around that quarterback, leave all of the available wide receivers from that team in your player pool, please. Okay? Don't do that. The reason is, if your quarterback is going off and the correlative play is working, it might be because some random, Randall Cobb or Donovan Peoples-Jones is having a big game. You don't want to, I get that some of these guys look turdly. You don't want to uncheck them. Like I'm stacking Kyler. I'm keeping AJ Green in my pool. I just am. If I'm stacking that quarterback, his wide receivers are going to be in the player pool for me. All of them. Let the projections do the work. We can adjust. We can control for exposures, but don't just uncheck players connected to a wide receiver, a quarterback that you might be stacking. Guys, I think that's it. This was, this again, not intended to be a breakdown of the slate. This is intended to be like a quick how to set up the Dom station. If you guys have questions, I'm always around, but it's much, much easier to answer them and show you the answers on screen in real time in these live streams. So if there's any questions, you want to hit me up with it now. I've got a whole bunch of shit going on as well in terms of, I'm a big post. Look for a big post in Discord. But we've got so many contests going on this week at DFS Army. I'm having a hard time keeping track. There's an NFT contest where you're getting free NFTs, which is awesome. Got to check that out. A lot of people probably don't know it. There's a contest being run over in Sharp Bets, some sort of survivor thing. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm going to post it. It seems awesome. Our staff are putting together like these incredible week 1 contests that you guys got to get in on. Here's Quez. Like I'm playing Quez this week I'm playing Quez with Jalen Hurts. Like I'm doing that. I am doing that. It's going to happen, especially since my boy Gargano said, Quez, keep an eye on Quez. That's enough for me. Donovan Peoples-Jones, the Peoples wide receiver. Got to play some of that. So when you uncheck everybody, make sure you really go through all of the names and make sure we don't miss anybody, checking them back in. I don't think there's anybody under this salary level that we're going to be. Oh, yeah, Rondell Moore. See, yeah, this week you got to go all the way down. Big way to look at who might be viable is to actually just look here at the points per dollar. Like, we're not going to play these Garbaggio guys. I'm going to check back De'Ami Brown because I think his projection will change. Boom. That's it. That's it. Half an hour podcast, boys. All right. Any other boys and girls? I got to remember that. Any other questions, anybody? How do you add in your cheat sheets data to the Dom station? Should we throw likes on those players? So don't do it formulaically, Tim. What I want you to do is you run the Dom, you look at what's happening in the exposures box. First, you start with in my cheat sheet is not designed to give you every single player that I might use in a tournament. I really try to cut down the number because not everybody's running tournaments. Like I'm trying to keep the cheat sheet much more geared towards 3 max and single entry people. I really am. I really am. I think both of those guys are good pivots off of pits, both of them. So I'm trying with the cheat sheet to gear it to 3 max, to handcrafted lineups and that. I write some notes that include like how I would stack this, but for the most part, I'm not including every single player from my player pool in tournaments on my cheat sheet because then so many fucking players and you guys get pissed at me like you said you name everybody, right? And so I'm trying not to do that. I don't want to name everybody. I'm trying to name the guys that I like more. So look at my cheat sheet as, and I'll talk about this on the Players Club tomorrow. I'm gonna yeah, it's another cheat sheet. Like I'll talk about this on the Players Club tomorrow. Really, the intention of it, which is to really understand who is the chalk, who are interesting pivots off the chalk, and then understanding cash games. We want to eat all that chalk. 3 max or single entry. We really want to find creative ways to make a chalky lineup that's not, if that makes sense, to find alternative things that we can do to make our sort of lineup different, but we don't need to get ridiculous with like the Donovan Peoples-Jones or some crazy like, hey, I'm going to play, Sam Darnold this week situation. You could still play the good players in 3 max and single entry and be unique. And then in tournaments, we want to leverage ownership to our favor. Over time, that's going to work. So again, in tournaments, we want to look at things like a lot of these guys. That's what I'm writing. When you see GPP on my sheet and like 1 or 2 stars, don't think, ugh, I don't want to play that guy. Think, all right, that's interesting for tournaments, but tournaments only. I try to write it in the notes to explain, like, listen, do I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week better than 4 or 5 other running backs priced exactly the same in better spots or slightly better spots? No, but if I'm getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 2% ownership versus Joe Mixon at 25% ownership in tournaments, it makes sense over time to play the lower owned guy. That will be a more profitable decision. It might not be more profitable today though, and a lot of us are really focused on today. So like this week, it might not be, but if you do that every week of the season, 3 times, 4 times out of the season, you're going to have a big hit that will make up for all these other losses. Whereas playing the other guy is probably much more a path to min cashing than it is to winning tournaments, especially in giant tournaments. But in a 150 person tournament, you can play that chalk. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to be driving that point across all season long, as I always do, guys. That's all I can do. I'm going to drive it across. Some of you will like grasp it and embrace it, and others you won't. And by the way, it's okay. The other part is learn what kind of player you are. You do not have to mass multi-enter. I showed you the evidence that when you do this mass multi-entry, 90% of the time, maybe higher, probably 95%, you're going to lose money. I know that sounds really shitty, and you're like, what are you talking about? I pay for a subscription. DFS Army, I should never lose money. That's not how mass multi-entry works. This is a tool. If you look at the pros, I can show you the evidence. I can show it to you right now. Everybody who did back testing with me, saw the evidence. We looked at every contest and every person that entered 150 lineups into it, and 95% of the time they lose money. So doing this, what I'm showing you here, is designed to lose money most of the time, but make a hit one time. We only need to hit it once or twice a season to make up for all the money losing. So if you're not comfortable losing money most of the time, but then having these big hits, which I will tell you, even for me personally, is psychologically very deflating. If you're not comfortable with that, I want you to stick with 20 entries in like the $3 game, and then 3 max handcraft single entry attacking these tournaments that are winnable. So we'll talk more about this stuff on the Players Club tomorrow. Make sure you're there. Figure about 1 o'clock. Prep a Blue Moon. Blue Moon is the ticket. Can't get in. Can't get into the Players Club without the Blue Moon. Make sure you bring it. Tomorrow, we'll go the whole slate. We'll talk 3 max. We'll talk cash. We'll do everything. We're going to hang out, fucking have a good time. All right. Start messing with the Dom Station, guys. Simple approach. Take care.